So the NFL draft marches on, means we do our best here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, to give you NFL draft coverage. But for the complete rundown, and I mean complete rundown, there's only one place to go, the NFL Draft Bible. So this is my go-to guy this time of year, Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. Rick, how you doing today?
Mark, I'm hanging in, man. It's always fun to do this. We've been doing this now the last several years, and always a pleasure, always a blast. And before anybody does anything else, subscribe right now. It's been magnificent to watch the Mark Rogers TV YouTube channel grow, so I'm a big fan and big supporter.
So there you see it right there. Rick Saratella, NFLDraftBible.com. Also go down to the description section of the video you're watching right here, and we'll give you all the links that you can find Rick and his content right there. So if you want the deep dive, you check out Rick on NFL Draft Bible and his other sources. So before we start with the quarterback position, Rick, this NFL draft, even before one name's been selected, is different than any other NFL draft in history for obvious reasons. So your preparation is insane from a year-to-year basis, but obviously you've hit challenges that you've never been able to anticipate before. So how has this NFL draft been different for you already, and what do you anticipate on draft weekend?
Yeah, it's been an interesting draft process, and one that we've never seen before. So I think the biggest thing is kind of going into it with incomplete numbers, right? The big trend in recent years, a lot of these guys will run the 40-yard dash, but they won't do the other drills because they got the home court advantage. I'll go run the short shuttle and 3-cone at my stadium, like faster track type of thing. And I think it's a lesson to be learned, really. Don't bypass an opportunity to perform. Anytime you have a chance to compete, take it up, because nothing is promised. This should be the ultimate case study. A lot of guys that chose not to work out at the combine and had their pro day canceled, well, now we have incomplete data. We don't have the full picture, and especially the small school guys, the non-combine invite guys, you want to see those numbers, especially at the pro day workouts, those numbers being canceled. And it's going to be tougher, I think, for the small school guys and the non-combine invite guys to get drafted. If they got an all-star game, whether it was the Senior Bowl, Shrine Game, NFLPA Bowl, I think you might see teams prefer to draft those guys because they had a chance to see them up close. But I think that the non-combine invites, we usually see about 30 guys traditionally every year. I think it'll probably be maybe half as many this year.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the NFL draft, and the only way for us to do that is to bring in Rick Saratella from NFL Draft Bible. We start at quarterback, and again, the search for a franchise quarterback is the aim for every NFL team, and going to be the aim for certainly the Cincinnati Bengals, projected to draft Joe Burrow, a kid that threw 16 touchdown passes 2 years ago as a junior. Then he throws 60, so you got to factor in Joe Brady's influence, obviously, the revamped offense at LSU, but he's still number one pick, even with those factors in there, that he's number one on the board regardless.
You know, it's an interesting scenario, because you take a look at one-year starters traditionally and their success in the NFL. I'm not sure we've quite had one. Dwayne Haskins a year ago, he struggled. Mitchell Trubisky a few years before that, he struggled. In fact, you can state an argument the most successful one-year starter we've seen in recent memory is Mark Sanchez. So I do have my concerns about the one-year wonder. On the flip side, I mean, how do you not like what Joe Burrow did this past season? Arguably the most historic single season in college football history. The numbers he made, the throws he made, remarkable. Did everything he could do, but you do have to question, where was he the last 4 years? Why couldn't he beat out Haskins at Ohio State? And yes, I know Joe Brady had a huge influence this past season, and it was a more run-orientated offense the year before, but why the sudden development? And you have to be a little bit queasy about that if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. I would not rule out a Joe Burrow pulling a Eli Manning or a John Elway as we get closer to the draft. I think that's still in play.
So we got Tua Tagovailoa. We've got Justin Herbert. There's a debate there over who's the second best quarterback. And for those people that are believing medical science and the advancements that we've had there in dealing with Tua's major injuries, they actually think Tua's got a higher ceiling than anyone. I've heard that out there. You've got Justin Herbert ahead of Tua. What's your thought process there?
Well, give me one quarterback to win one game. Give me two all day, Joe Burrow included. You want me to take a quarterback to get through a 17-game season? Well, I got my doubts about Tua because he's had trouble getting through a full season as is, and now you factor in the new injuries that he kind of hid that we just found out about. 2 wrist surgeries, in addition to the hip surgery, in addition to the ankle surgery. I mean, you've really got to be worried about the Humpty Dumpty putting these pieces back together again, and the durability is a major concern. So to me, hey, when I talk about upside, is Tua the better quarterback when I turn on the film? Absolutely. But as a GM, am I going to be willing to risk my reputation, risk my job security to draft this guy, and then he doesn't make it? Availability is still the best ability, and for that reason, I'll roll the dice with Justin Herbert. Give me that guy. I feel better about the long-term durability.
Most of the people that watch me and most of the games that I watch myself are obviously the 5 major conferences. Jordan Love's a guy that I've seen on a handful of times, but he obviously is a name that's in the mix as well. Had a huge junior season, fell off as a senior in regards to TD pick ratio, but a lot of factor from other parts of the ball and the play calling and everything factors into that. So what's your take on Jordan Love?
I think the P word, the potential, is where the teams are going to see. And his combine performance was outstanding. And I saw him week 1, I believe it was, against Wake Forest, and he threw 3 interceptions in that game. And I think, he tended to put the team on his back too many times and try to squeeze the ball in the tight windows, which he can do. But I think sometimes, he was better off just getting rid of the ball, maybe sometimes taking a sack instead of forcing a throw. And there's going to be some coaching there involved. But I think in terms of the upside, this guy's ceiling is as high as it gets. There are some games that are troublesome. The BYU game was troublesome. Some of these higher-ranked opponents that he faced throughout the season is when you saw those turnovers, those bad decisions, and how is that going to translate at the next level? You saw Daniel Jones a year ago. He had that problem coming out of Duke, and he just had a bushel of turnovers for the Giants this past season. They're going to have to cut that down, but if he gets with the right system, the right coaching staff, I think sky's the limit for Jordan Love.
Rick Saratella on the line from NFLDraftBible.com. Please join him right there, and we'll get you all the links down in the description section of where you can find Rick. Nathan Stanley's a guy that really never developed at Iowa. He was the starter right out of the gate, grabbed the starting job as soon as he stepped on campus as a freshman, has played 4 years at Iowa. I always expected him to get better and better, and he seemed to be the same quarterback as a senior as a freshman. You've got him all the way down at number 14 in your ranking, so I was a bit surprised to see that. I kind of liken him in regards to size. And again, I'm coming at this from just watching the games. I don't break it down anywhere close to what Rick does here from an NFL perspective. But Jacob Eason and Nathan Stanley seem very similar to me in regards to what they deliver. So your thoughts on those two guys?
Well, I think Eason has great arm strength, maybe arguably the strongest arm in this year's draft. And the flashes that he shows are more exciting than what Nate Stanley shows. And, quite frankly, coming into the season, I had Nate Stanley as a day 2 guy, top 100 guy. And I think he didn't take that step that we wanted to see this past season. And it's the ultimate Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality, because he'll have games where you say, hey, this guy looks like a potential NFL starter. And then he has games where you're just like, well, let's scrap that one. I think, my grade comes from a competitive standpoint. And I had a chance to work with the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl this past year. Nate Stanley turned down our invitation, and he didn't get a Senior Bowl invite. He didn't get an East-West Shrine Game invite. And to me, I want a guy who competes. So, as a quarterback, as a franchise guy, I want a guy who's a competitor that wants to go out and try to improve his draft stock. And to me, that just kind of soured me a little bit. He was here in New Jersey in my backyard training leading up to the draft and working with quarterback coach Tony Rasiopi. So his mechanics have improved since the end of the season. And I do think that, he could be drafted, although, again, I'm just a competitive guy. So my franchise quarterback, I want a guy who competes no matter what, especially when you have so much room for improvement. I thought if he came out to Pasadena and competed, he had a chance to significantly improve his draft stock, like a Nick Tiano from Chattanooga did, or a Brian Lewerke from Michigan State took up that opportunity. So, Stanley's going to be all over the board. You're going to see guys that love the upside, and then you're going to see guys that are just scared by the inconsistency. And I think Eason a lot goes for that. Since I published the book a few weeks ago, I've kind of, come down on the Eason ladder and think, maybe he's even a day 3 guy at this point.
It's funny you bring up Lewerke because, again, as watching this as a college football guy who loves the NFL, I love the NFL. It's not like I don't watch the NFL, but in regards to how I approach what I'm doing here, Lewerke looks like a college quarterback. Stanley as a pro quarter, but I've always had that stuck in my head for years watching them in the style of play, just because Lewerke runs around, creates more plays. Stanley's more of a boom, Drew Bledsoe back there, I'm going to pick out my guy and really fire it. Just that's been stuck in my head for years since those guys arrived on campus and took those jobs in the same conference. And now Lewerke's probably a better prospect. Interesting stuff there. So my favorite question for you, Rick, regardless of position, is always, who's that guy under the radar nobody's talking about that you really like that might surprise us?
James Morgan is the guy that keeps coming up in conversations, and he's been linked now to the New England Patriots. He's a guy, again, coming into the season at Florida International. I had a chance to do some film study on him last summer, and I loved his ability to buy time in the pocket, throw on the run. Now, his accuracy has been up and down too. In fact, I didn't think he had the greatest season film-wise this past year, but again, you get to the combine, apple to apple, orange to orange comparison. You see him throw against the 13 or 15 other guys that were invited out to Indianapolis, and James Morgan was just as good, if not as good, as the top tier guys. And I think he's right there. I think in that day 2 mix. If you hear James Morgan, Florida International in round 2, don't be surprised.